Wednesday, October 4th, 7:30 PM, 2023. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have the review of the minutes of the September 6, 2023 and September 11, 2023 regular minutes. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns, discussion-wise from council on those minutes? No. Hearing none, I am looking for a motion to accept those minutes or approve those minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the meeting of, from August?
For September.
September, I'm sorry.
Looking for a second.
I will second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have, pardon me if I butcher any names here, reception of delegation, DeLeon and Stan, Michelle Mills, and Addie Blickenstaff.
You got it.
Okay, nice. Presentation of fiscal year 2023 audit. At your discretion, y'all.
Alrighty.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michelle Mills. I'm an audit principal with De Leon and Stang. With me this evening is Addie Blickenstaff. She is the audit manager. She led the audit engagement and was the point of contact and worked most closely with Barry during the audit. And tonight, just for clarification, we are presenting the draft audit report for your approval. Each of you in your packet received a very lengthy document. We're not here tonight to go over each and every page. We have prepared a PowerPoint of what we think is most important information from the entire document, but certainly are here to answer any questions you may have as well. There we go. All right, our first slide is going to give some general audit information, and it's at the government-wide level. Our responsibility as auditors is to plan and perform the audit to make sure that the financial statements are fairly stated and to issue an opinion on those financial statements. We're proposing an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which means that they are fairly stated in all material respects. All the transactions were found to be properly supported. We encountered no difficulties in performing the audit, and there were no disagreements with management. We would like to commend Barry and her team for an excellent job. This is probably the fastest turnaround we've had. The audit started shortly after Labor Day, and here we are this evening with a draft report. They do a really nice job. And I always say, in order to have an audit clean, it's what you do every day, not just the 2 or 3 weeks prior to the audit team arriving. So I just want to make sure Barry and her team get praised. We did have one material audit adjustment that we found during our audit procedures, and that was to record retainage payable on some construction projects, and we're going to talk about the details a little bit further in the presentation. There was one significant deficiency in internal control identified, and we have a separate slide on that as well to go over the details with you. And then new for fiscal year 2023, because of your ARPA funding, the city elected to have an alternative compliance examination of its ARPA spending, and that was because you expended more than $750,000 during fiscal year 2023, and we're going to go over that a little later in another slide as well.
Okay, we're now going to switch to some very high-level financial highlights of the city on a government-wide basis. Just a reminder, when we use the words government-wide, we mean general and utility funds combined. So these are totals for both of those funds. Government-wide total assets at year-end were about $54.1 million. Total liabilities were just under $15 million. And reminder, assets minus our liabilities give us our net position, which was $35.9 million as of June 30, 2023. Of which $9.3 million is restricted for future capital infrastructure and a loan reserve. Overall, the city had a change in net position of an increase of $3.6 million. Some other noteworthy items. The city's cash deposits were fully collateralized as required by state law at June 30, 2023. During fiscal year 2023, the city contributed $305,000 to the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System for its employees. Total debt payments due within the coming year are just about $920,000. During total ARPA funds awarded through fiscal year 23, again, the city received its second and final payment from ARPA in August 2022, were $6.7 million. During fiscal year 2023, the city spent $2.3 million, and at June 30, 2023, $4.2 million remains deferred for future use and future projects. Here is a quick snapshot of the government-wide total assets broken down into the relative categories. As you can see by the left-hand side, the green, the city's total assets, the largest category of its total assets are its capital assets of just about $31.6 million, or 58% of its total. The next largest categories are its cash and cash equivalents in the medium blue color, I'll call it that, at $11.7 million, or 22%. Restricted cash of $9.7 million, or 18%. And then receivables due from customers or other governments of just over $1 million. On the opposite ends of things, this is looking at the government-wide total liabilities of $14.6 million. $10 million of it is debt obligations, as you can see in the light blue color, which represents 69% of your total liabilities. The net pension liability, again, future pension contributions, is just under $3 million, or 20%. Accounts payable and accrueds of $1.4 million, and then a small remaining other liability balance of $128,000.
Now we're going to, this is our general fund? Okay. So now we're going to switch to the general fund, and this is some financial highlights. The difference between your assets and your liabilities on a fund level is termed fund balance, and we are required to break out your fund balance into 4 different categories. The very first column is the non-spendable, which equals your prepaid expenses, which is about $26,000. Committed, which represented park impact fees, was about $273,000. Assigned was a small balance of about $7,600 and represented the remaining payments on a non-cancelable lease obligation and some police asset forfeitures. And then the remainder is unassigned, and that's $4.7 million. The general fund total revenues were about $6.6 million, very comparable to the an increase of 1.2 over the prior year. General fund expenses were also 6.6, an increase of 1.3. So when you look at bullet point number 6, you'll see overall very comparable year over year. Our revenues were up, our expenses were up, but our net was relatively the same. For fiscal year 2023, it was an excess of $33,000 versus an excess of $42,000 in the prior year.
These next 2 slides are just some bar graphs that are going to highlight those changes in the revenue and expense categories of the general fund. So along the bottom, you can see the largest revenue accounts: taxes, licenses and permits, intergovernmental revenues, service charges, and other revenues. And as you can see, the largest swing in categories is in the intergovernmental revenues, going from about $1 million to $1.9 million, and that was due to our ARPA funding during fiscal year 2023. Again, we incurred a lot of ARPA expenses, and we have to match that relative revenue and recognize the grant income. The service charges in the 4th bar over were a bit down, and that was due to our impact fees, less development and collection of impact fees and benefit assessments in 2023 as compared to 2022. And then we did experience a little bit of growth in other revenue categories, which was due to some auction proceeds and insurance claims during the year. The taxes on the left-hand side is just a natural growth of the city, going from about $3.9 million to $4.3 million. Here's the snapshot of the expenses. As you can see, the largest increase is in that middle category of public works, going from about 1.5 million to 2.4 million, and that was due to the various capital outlay projects that were funded by the ARPA, the biggest ones being the Roberts Mill, right, Barry? Roberts Mill project during fiscal year 2023. All the other categories were relatively comparable year over year.
This next slide is going to focus on the utility fund and give a few financial highlights. The total net position for the utility fund was 23.8 million, and that was broken down into 4 categories. Your net investment in capital assets was 11.9 million. Restricted for the wastewater treatment plant loan reserve was about 26,000. Restricted for future capital infrastructure, 9.3 million, and the remaining balance of 2.5 is unrestricted. The total operating revenues were 4.8 million, and that was a slight decrease from fiscal year 2022 of about 362,000. The total operating expenses were 3.2 million, and that was a slight decrease from fiscal year 2022 of about 55,000. There were non-operating revenues of about 546,000, and that included 368,000 of a capital contribution related to the acceptance of Meadowbrook, as well as interest income of about 178,000. Your investment income was up significantly due to rates. Your total non-operating expense, which comprised interest expense, was just over 331,000. Overall, there was net income of $1.8 million in the utility fund compared to 1.6 million in the prior year.
Here is the bar graph, again, looking at the utility fund's operating revenues year over year. Charges for services saw a big drop from about 4.9 million to 3.1 million. This was due to the benefit assessments being drastically down in fiscal year 23 compared to fiscal year 22. It was hot and heavy with development for, I don't know, several years, and then fiscal year 23, it really slowed down. All the other categories, rental income and miscellaneous, were comparable, and then similar to the general fund, a big uptick in our intergovernmental revenues due to the grant income of the ARPA funding. As Michelle mentioned on the financial highlights slide, the expenses only decreased $55,000 from fiscal year 22. So as you can see across the various categories, they're all comparable year over year.
Your audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. And as a result, we are required to look at your internal controls over financial reporting and communicate anything that is deemed to be either a significant deficiency or material weakness in your internal controls. So this next slide is going to highlight the one finding that we had during the fiscal year 2023 audit.
So our one finding, again, was a significant deficiency, which was less severe than a material weakness and was related to contractor invoices. So we're going to move from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the screen. Criteria. The city is responsible for having adequate internal controls over financial reporting and ensuring the city's books and records are complete and all costs are properly recorded. During our testing, we noted several contractor invoices for various capital projects where the corresponding retainage had not been recorded as of June 30. Additional capital outlay costs and corresponding retainage payables were recorded as of year-end in both the general and the utility fund. In addition, the related grant income was recorded as most of the projects were grant funded. The overall cause, due to the ongoing nature of these projects, there was a misunderstanding as to when such costs should be recorded. The effect of the finding, additional capital outlay costs were recorded for the following amounts, adjusting for the applicable retainage. General fund of 33,000, utility fund of 130,000, for additional retainage and capital outlay cost of 164,000. In addition, grant income was recorded of 103,000 amongst the two funds. There was one project that was not funded by ARPA or a grant, and so that's why those two figures are a bit different. So we recommend the city review its current internal control policies to ensure situations like the one described above are properly detected and corrected. I won't go over the whole response, but the response provided by management was that the city has updated their capital asset narrative to now include recognition of retainage at fiscal year end as underlined in the below excerpt from the narrative. The construction in progress tracking spreadsheet has also been updated to include retainage amounts. Checking for retainage on projects and recording any applicable costs will be part of the year-end process moving forward. And there's just the excerpt from the new narrative regarding construction in progress cost. So I'm going to pause there if you have any questions, because I know that was a lot of information before we move on to the last piece.
Any questions, council?
Is it just a matter that it was not recorded as an ongoing, the retainage was not recorded properly ongoing, it was all recorded at the end of the year? Is that, I'm kind of lost as to why that was, what that issue was and why it was an issue.
So with large contractor projects, they hold, some of them hold 5%, 10% retainage. Again, costs incurred, but the city isn't going to remit the cash until we're ensured the project is complete. So those costs that were incurred weren't recorded when we did the audit in the correct fiscal year, and they were just kind of, again, I don't want to say nowhere, but they weren't in fiscal year 23, even though the costs had been incurred.
So there was no account set aside for
Correct.
that, even though
Yes.
that was an
Yes.
expenditure recorded, it was not,
Right. Yep.
it wasn't a cash outlay, but it was a
Right.
expenditure
We
incurred.
weren't showing it as a payable at year end. That was
Right.
going to be due to the contractor. Yep.
So essentially, it was missed until the audit process, and then when we began the audit process, it came to our attention and the entry was booked.
Yep. Anything else? Okay.
Earlier on, we mentioned that the city elected to undergo an alternative compliance examination. And again, I kind of laugh at elected to. So what they did was they allowed municipalities that received ARPA money this examination choice if this is where all of their federal money was coming from. If you received other federal money and the ARPA would have kicked you over to have a single audit, then again, you have to have a single audit. You weren't eligible, you weren't required to have a single audit. The only federal dollars you had was the ARPA, so they allowed this lesser examination. I think early back several years ago, many years ago probably, the city did undergo single audits because of federal monies that they had received for various projects. It's probably been a number of years since you had to undergo one. So this is an easier route for municipalities to meet their obligation to elect to have this examination. Our compliance procedures were done concurrently with the financial statement audit. We have completed all of our work, and we will be issuing our compliance report here at later this week or early next week. We wanted to share the results with you. We did not identify any instances of non-compliance. Under the examination, we were required only to look at activities allowed or unallowed and whether or not the city complied with the cost principles. In our opinion, the city did comply in all material respects with the specified requirements during fiscal year 2023. So we are planning to give a clean audit report on your compliance of your ARPA spending. Any questions?
I'm not hearing any questions here. So a little bit after, once we get to resolution, ordinance, and agreements, we'll be looking to do the approval for this. Again, is there any questions at the council level until then? Good. Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for the presentation.
Thank you guys so much.
Next up, we have council member statements regarding conflicts of interest on the agenda items. Would any council members like to express those now? Hearing none, proceeding forward to public comment pertaining to agenda and non-agenda items. If you're in the audience and you have a public comment that you'd like to make now or pertaining to agenda or non-agenda items, this is the time. Hearing none, I'm going to proceed down to resolution ordinances and agreements. First up, we have the approval of the fiscal year 2023 audit. I'm looking for a motion on the approval of that draft audit.
Make that motion.
Looking for a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, we have the adoption of Resolution 2023-15 water allocation for September. I am looking for a motion on the acceptance of that.
I move we accept the water allocation.
Looking for a second.
I will second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. We are at the city manager report.
On capital equipment, been reporting on that every month. Our Public Works truck number 8 is officially retired. That was the F-350 that the Public Works Director uses to run around town and for him being on call. So it's replacement vehicles in service. The small dump truck is still at the upfitter. On the police vehicles, Acting Chief Mitchell has been keeping in touch with the dealer for state bid. They've advised that they have 2 vehicles. Acting Chief Mitchell is in contact with the salesperson at the dealership, trying to make sure we lock those 2 vehicles in, since these were actually vehicles that were supposed to be delivered in fiscal year '23, and we had to roll that acquisition into the current year. So police vehicles have just been very, very problematic this year. So we're still waiting to hear back from the dealer. But, you know, we've decided even though one's not the right color, we can use it as an unmarked vehicle and not have to have vehicles sort of keep stacking up as far as, you know, our regular replacement program. So that's still in the works. I was hoping I'd be able to report by tonight that we'd signed everything and the vehicles were on the way, but that has not happened yet. As far as changes to charter and code, our second item, there's a draft backyard chicken ordinance in this month's packet. Director Hale and I have reviewed a number of ordinances, some of which Councilwoman Fuller provided, kind of picked and chose from those what we liked and thought were, you know, things that would work best if we did move forward with something like this for the city. We also had a call with Dawn Kenna, the Carroll County Animal Control Supervisor, and she offered some good, I guess, knowledge, being someone who keeps chickens herself, as to things to watch out for and if we do move forward with allowing them in the city. So, you know, she gave us some good pointers on enforcement aspects. And so again, that ordinance is in the packet. We'll talk about it a little bit later under old business. And let's see, moving on, the Roberts Mill Road Broad Street project. Front yards were restored this past week. Obviously, you know, it's going to take some time for the grass seed to take hold and everything, but the yards were dressed with topsoil, and there's still some more blacktop work to be done on a couple driveways and parking lots over there. Work really has shifted over to Roberts Mill Road at this point, and there's more in the Public Works report for that, but we are still on target to meet the 300-day construction window that was in the contract. And things are really moving quickly on Roberts Mill Road. They have multiple crews out there. They have storm drain going in from both ends to kind of meet in the middle, which is a little unusual, but they've got the manpower to be putting additional crews on the job, and the pace has really picked up. The area between Franklin and Antrim has been milled now, so work on the water line there is ongoing. And again, weather permitting, we're on target to finish this fall. So things are, the pace has really picked up once they got past all the rock issues with Broad Street. The storm drain project at Riffles Lane, not a lot of new information. I did hear back from the engineer today. He assures me that he will have the design finalized by early next week at the latest. And they are also working on the deeds of easement or the easement plats, because this is an area where we did not have this drain mapped and we didn't have a utility easement across the properties, and that's kind of accounted for some of the slow pace of things with trying to get permission from all the property owners, and this goes back, quite a ways at this point. So it's still in the engineer's hands. The project is going to require more paving on Riffles Lane than we originally anticipated, just because the area is so flat between the inlet on Riffles Lane and where it goes into the state highway system on York Street, that we are going to need to recontour part of Riffles Lane to make sure the water gets to the drain and that it functions properly. So basically, we don't want to repeat whatever was done when that drain was installed, and it probably never really functioned well. But we're hearing some concerns from property owners along there, because some of them have dug up the pipe in their backyard themselves to try to figure out what was going on with it. And if we can get those easements recorded, we'll be a lot more comfortable going in there and making temporary repairs to the yards. But until we have those utility easements, all we have is we have a right of entry that the homeowners signed. So we'd really like to get the easements signed before we go in there and actually do any work. Let's see, the fiscal year '24 sewer rehabilitation, we're waiting for 2 more proposals for this year's projects. CDM Smith, our usual engineer, is going to prepare a proposal for us, and we've asked 2 other engineering firms for proposals as well. So hopefully those will be back and before you next month, so we can make a choice on who we're going to award the design of those projects to. And this is these will be for the sewer lines behind West Baltimore Street and terracotta lines that run through Memorial Park. And when I say West Baltimore Street, this is not actually in the street. This particular line runs in people's backyards for homes that front West Baltimore Street on the south side of the street. So it's not going to tear up the street, but it is going to disturb people's backyards. So in addition to those project sort of things, just wanted to give a little bit of an update on the Taneytown Police Department. Major STEM of the Sheriff's Office has continued his efforts to review and update our policies and procedures. He's nearly wrapped up there. We've thrown a couple other tasks his way that weren't in his original list of to-dos, but he's provided everything to the acting chief and the lieutenant down there for their review. The critical policies that we talked about last month have all been implemented through general orders and are all in Empower DMS for the officers to review, sign for, and implement. Also on the police front, we've had some conversation about the portable radios the police are using. They're very old. Some are not functioning reliably, and we really need to implement a replacement program. So these radios are not inexpensive, so we're thinking about maybe purchasing 5 a year, something like that, until we can get all of them replaced. More to come on that, but that's going to be an expense probably in the coming year's budget. We'll try to budget to acquire maybe 5 radios each year for the next 3 years.
Do you have to order them independently? You don't have a state order that you can?
So we can piggyback on the sheriff's department's bid to try to save some money there. So we definitely are looking into that. Let's see. And as far as sheriff's office involvement with the police department, the forensic team from the sheriff's office has been in touch with the acting chief, and they've started inventorying the evidence room and also evaluating different systems for the city that will give us a better, more efficient way to track the evidence. We still have a lot of the systems that have been used over the years have changed, and we still have evidence down there that goes back to paper-only systems. So we're looking to update everything and combine all of there are 4 different systems that have been in use down there. So we want to try to consolidate that into one modern system that when we have designate a new evidence custodian, that individual will have one system to keep track of everything rather than, oh, this piece of evidence goes back to this system and, this piece of evidence goes to this big book over here. So we are looking to basically modernize that.
Are there prepackaged software systems available for
Yes.
that?
Yes. Right. So it'll be, certainly we can look at what the sheriff's department uses, but there are other packages available as well. So we'll be exploring that in the coming month or so. Let's see. Some other stuff that's going on. The Maryland Department of Transportation pre-tour is tomorrow. This is the annual event where staff goes and shares with Department of Transportation staff at the state level various needs and desires of the municipalities and the county. The Department of Transportation folks go around the state every year, county by county, and do this. So the pre-tour is when the staff gets to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts stuff and also give the secretary's staff a heads up on what's likely to come up during the actual tour, which is when the Secretary of Transportation comes out, and then usually the elected officials go to the tour. So that's coming up tomorrow. It's going to be a virtual meeting, which we haven't, it was virtual during COVID, but then it was back to in person. Now it's back to virtual. So this is our opportunity to put the bypass on everybody's radar screen at the state level. Not that they haven't heard from us a lot recently anyhow, but that's coming up tomorrow. So we'll keep it on there, keep it on the forefront for them. Let's see. Economic Development Director Misha and I have just started working on our Sustainable Communities renewal. That is due later this month, so we're a little bit of a crunch on it. We don't need a resolution this year as we have had to do originally, so it doesn't have to come back before you. But we do need to sort of reassemble a work group for the renewal. And we'll be reaching out probably to some folks that were involved in it in the past. And let's see, last thing, just wanted to point out, October is National Pedestrian Safety Month. So we've talked a lot about pedestrian safety in recent months, and State Highway has helped us out with implementing some upgrades like the lead pedestrian interval at our signalized intersections and the upgraded crosswalks. So just, keep your eyes open for pedestrians, and this month is about raising awareness and maybe some additional enforcement efforts. So just again, keep your eyes open, watch out for pedestrians. And go ahead.
I was told a little while ago that the sign is now missing out from the middle of the street.
Thank you.
Went out today.
I saw it earlier today when I came through, but
Okay,
my
so
wife
it
informed me that
disappeared
it's
today.
now gone.
Okay, I'll reach out to the maintenance shop tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of questions. One of the things that you brought up in your report about things that are going on with the police department, the rules of conduct have been reviewed and recommendations to make them more specific. Are these changes to the employee manual, or is?
No, these will be specific to the police department. I don't think these are things that would carry over to non-police staff. So it will probably be referred to in a police addendum when we're able to update the employee handbook, which we'd like to do once a new police chief is on board. We'd like, that individual's input into creating a police addendum for the employee handbook, and Clara has been compiling changes to the handbook for quite some time, but we've been holding off on it to be able to do this police addendum at the same time.
What's the acoustics issue in the interview room?
The interview
Oh,
room.
They can't record, is that the?
It is, yes, the acoustics are so bad that recording interviews is going to be problematic. It's very echoey, it's cinder block walls, tile floor, and doesn't even have ceiling tiles at this point. So it's very echoey in there, and that's going to mess with the recording.
Yeah, and then, I mean, in the meantime, can we just hang some fabric?
We have, we've reached out to a couple different firms, and we've only gotten response from one, and it's not a large dollar amount, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward with it so that we can get that.
I think
We
we seem
have
to be
the
that
other,
would be
we have the other equipment, and we've been waiting. So we had the equipment, then we were waiting to make sure we had the right policy in place before we used the interview room. And then we realized that the interview room itself is not ready. So, and we also want to put a coat of paint on it before the soundproofing or the acoustic people come in and, you know, put some sound deadening material up in there. But the room's been sitting there for quite some time, unused, so we're getting close now.
Good. One thing on, I like the look of the new Main Street Taneytown website, and I just have a little comment, you know, on the, our Explore Our Main Street Businesses page, for Bollinger Gunsmithing, there's a very nice photo of a gold tone automatic pistol, which I don't know if that's quite the image we want to put out there. Maybe we could exchange that for something of some nice hunting rifles or something a little different. It's not the most friendly photo in the world.
Noted, that's always a bit of a question mark when we are, when guns are involved in something. You know, we try to be supportive of some of the local athletic associations and other not-for-profit groups, and, you know, there are times that their fundraiser is a gun raffle or something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, those, right, can be polarizing.
I get it. I just
So-
would like something a little less of a Baltimore image on that photo, if that's
Sure, no,
possible.
noted. We'll address that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for me, unless
Jim,
folks have
are
any
we any
questions.
further along with the DPW meeting with the senator and our staff? Have we heard anything?
We have, I did speak, actually, I had a good call with Senator Reedy yesterday. We touched on that a little bit, and as some of this we probably should talk about not in a public session, as far as the site for the facility that is moving forward. And I think that's going to be sort of our key in anything else moving forward, is, you know, ensuring that we do have that site in hand.
Okay.
So, in conversation with the senator yesterday, however, he did encourage that we focus on something that, beyond just it being an ordinary public works type facility, that there would need to be something, you know, to make it more appealing to the state for any kind of special funding, that there needs to be some kind of environmental benefit, public safety benefit, you know, and maybe you know, things that the current administration is focused on.
Okay,
So,
you're answering something I didn't ask, but that was nice to know. No, I'm asking about the meeting that we're having concerning
the fines.
I'm sorry, okay,
Yes.
wrong,
But thanks for
wrong
that other
topic. I
Thanks for the other
apologize. Okay, okay. Yes, so we are scheduled to meet with MDE in November. We have some work to do on the city team side of things between now and then. Did discuss that with the senator as well, and kind of came up with our game plan on that, which I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail here with. But we are moving forward. The senator, is maintaining his support for us, and basically is going to be on standby for whatever we need as we have this meeting with MDE in November.
It's my fault. I shouldn't have said DPW. I should have said MDE.
Okay. So, okay, right,
Thank you.
sure. Any other questions for me? Okay,
Is that all for city manager report?
talked enough?
Sounds good. Next up, we got the departmental reports. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns with that?
I had one question. And this may have occurred before the new council was seated, but I noticed we lost Grandma's Gems and Buddy Bears and it was torn down. And I wasn't aware of this, that this was gonna happen. Was this something that was in plans? I don't see where we issued a demolition permit or anything like that. And I was just wondering if we knew what the intentions for that property might be.
Let me scroll back. I did not look at the zoning administrators.
Yeah, I spoke
List
to
here.
Administrator Hale about it the other day, and he did issue a demolition permit. There was no plan for anything else to go in there at this time. I think the recognition by the property owner is that the property was more valuable without the building on it than it is with the building. That building had fallen into tremendous disrepair.
I guess the property owner can do what he wants to with his property. I just wonder if you knew of is there any
There's nothing.
reason that it was taken down other than the fact that he wants to market the lot?
That's it.
Reportedly, the building was in very poor condition, interior-wise, and the new owner of the property did sell. The new owner, determined that it was going to be easier to market as a clear site than with the derelict building on it.
Was there a demolition?
I understand that zoning administrator Hale did issue a zoning certificate for the building's demolition. There's no particular process for that. This property.
We don't have anything that requires somebody to
No,
get a
sir.
permit to destroy a building?
No, it's a property owner decision. And while this is outside of the Old Town District, even within the Old Town District, the design standards control new construction, but they don't stop demolition. So we really don't have any mechanism in place. If a property owner wants to take down a house,
That's something we
they can do that.
Consider, when Buzzy Bears is one thing, but, one of our historic downtown buildings could be next, and that may be tragic, so.
Is there any other questions for the departmental reports?
Are we gonna offer comments on the departments other than the reports? In other words,
At the
is
end.
this the time to do
At
that?
the end, going over our specific departments?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll do that towards the end we'll do it before public comment pertaining to agenda
All
items. So any additional comments regarding the departmental reports? Hearing none, proceeding forward to old business backyard chickens. You want to lead us off, Jim, on that?
Well, again, this is in response to the council's direction to explore the idea of backyard chickens. You know, this is a draft for your discussion. It's not being introduced tonight or anything like that. Basically, this would be in the zoning chapter, so it would be treating it as a zoning. People would get a certificate before getting the chickens and having a coop. So kind of the highlights of it, we are talking about a maximum of 3 chickens to be kept. In talking with with animal control, they actually recommended that an acre be the minimum size lot. But here in the city, we don't have many acre lots. So, you know, again, this is a more urban environment than is often the case where chickens are kept. But 3 seemed to be a manageable number, and that was, you know, a number that some other municipalities used with similar sized lots that we have. But we would require a chicken coop and a run for the chickens as well, with at least 4 square feet per chicken for the coop and 10 square feet per chicken for the run. We'd like the setbacks to be 20 feet from any property line. You know, again, the county ordinance, for example, is 75 feet from a property line, but that kind of a setback would eliminate the possibility for even a lot of our larger lots in the city. Most of our lots are, you know, most of what's been built in the city over the last 20 years is in the R10,000 district. So that's a 10,000 square foot lot, you know, just about a quarter of an acre. And, you know, they typically are not 150 feet wide. They're typically more like, you know, 60 to 80 feet wide, 130 feet, 150 feet deep. So 20 feet seemed like a reasonable number to keep the coops away from property lines far enough that hopefully there won't be any smell issues for the neighbors. And
It does kind of-
still allowing it on, you know, your typical single-family lot. It wouldn't allow it on, you know, I believe any of the existing townhome lots in the city, but, you know, perhaps townhome may not be the best place to have a backyard flock. So, you know, it doesn't let everybody in the city have chickens. You need to have a certain amount of space to do it, the way this is drafted. So, so again, 20-foot setbacks, they have to be in the rear yard. And we would like people to take some sort of an online educational course. There are a number of, you know, chicken keeper certifications that you can get online. You know, you basically go through a presentation and you know, print out a certificate at the end. So we'd like to make sure that folks kind of take that step, so hopefully they will have an idea what they're getting into, rather than just the cute little chicks that they see at TSC or the hardware store every spring. So we would like that, you know, educational component to be in there, that somebody needs to show they've taken the time to go through that course before they apply. And, you know, we don't want to have any commercial activities like selling eggs. And you'll need to get a zoning certificate for it before you can establish your flock. And then you need to register the flock with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. That's a state requirement. And we want to make sure that happens, so we want to have proof of that within 90 days. And the 90 days is probably a little long, but that's consistent with the window that we allow people to pull a building permit. So if I do a project where, you know, if I'm building a deck, I need to get a county building permit as well as a city zoning certificate. And my zoning certificate gives me 90 days to pull that county permit. So we thought we'd be consistent with what we do for other zoning certificates. The Department of Agriculture advises that they typically turn the registration around within 15 to 30 days. So 90 days might be a little long, but again, it's kind of being consistent with what we do for other certificates. So that's kind of the highlights of it, and really this is just to kind of get the discussion started. If you like what you see here, you know, we can move forward with it and ask the city attorney to review it and, you know, put his 2 cents in as well. But, you know, this is kind of the framework that the zoning administrator and I came up with.
I mean, I like it. I think it's simple, simple enough, but still, you know, certainly gets enough information out there in terms of lot line offsets and stuff. The only thing I'd say is you may want to include where they would get their certificate as
Yes.
in the verbiage. You know,
Right.
a certificate from X.
Yes, and much like we do with fence permits, we would have a second page with the zoning application that would have some backyard chicken-specific information, such as a couple different sites where you could get that chicken keeper certification or something similar, and also some guidelines that animal control has kind of assembled for us as well, so that, you know, we have a little bit more of an information sheet to go along with it that tells them, you know, where they can go find, you know, get their certificate and so on.
Yeah, I don't think you'd include it in the ordinance just in case the links or anything like that change in the
Yeah.
future.
And there were,
I don't know whether
There-
it would have to come from the Department of Agriculture or whatever, whether that would, if that's a specific
Right.
requirement. So that's what I was driving.
Right,
It's
so
not
we can-
necessarily a
yeah.
specific website
Right.
link, but
yes.
that it would have to come from this organization.
Yes, and, right, and we would certainly still need to, you know, to come up with that information sheet to go along with the application, but that doesn't need to be in the actual ordinance.
Right.
So, and there were some ordinance that were much more complicated than this, and while we liked some of that detail, we talked about trying to enforce that level of detail, and that would just be problematic for us. So we decided that we really wanted to keep it simple and make it, you know, relatively easy for the zoning administrator and code enforcement officer to keep track of.
I have a couple of little comments. I know typically, when it comes to chickens, 3 is normally your minimum because they are flock animals or birds, poultry, whatever. And the people that already currently have chickens, 6 being that magic number that a lot of them have. If you keep that maximum at 3 and they lose 1 or 2, then as far as the health of the chicken goes, I think you're talking about screwing that up. It's hard to introduce new chickens in the middle of whatever season. Just for planning ahead for everybody that already has chickens and is gonna come up and say, well, I've got 5. Now you're telling me I have to dump 2 of them. They've already had in their mind that 6 was that magic number. And also, knowing that roosters are prohibited, if there's some way to put something in there, because I know when people get the little ones, you don't know necessarily that they are chicks or roosters. So they should have some kind of timetable to find out and then figure out. I know that they do have organizations that help rehome roosters. I don't know how many there are.
Okay.
Or
We can certainly look into that and
just
and
more- yeah,
include
something
something
else to check
in that
into.
information sheet.
Right.
that,
And then the last thing was the setback for, was it C, from the lot line? For sheds and stuff, is our setback right now 10 feet? Depending,
Accessory buildings is actually 5 feet, but typically, there are a lot of properties around town that have a 10-foot drainage and utility easement
Okay.
that we try to keep the sheds out of as well.
Right.
So a lot are 10 feet from the property line.
and the only thing I'm gonna worry about there is if they try to incorporate any of those sheds into their coop area or their runs, then they're gonna have a problem with that space. So if we keep just that setback with the sheds, comprehensive with the, I mean, because I know people who have small barns already on their property that are like 10 feet from the line, and they may decide to use part of that, you know, for their chickens. So
That's-
just something else to think about.
Right, and certainly that's why we're having the conversation.
Right,
So,
right.
you know, part of the setback issue was, you know, there are some concerns that, you know, there, potential
Well, and I don't have a
for
problem with the
smell
20
and
feet
things
from
like
any
that.
dwelling.
Yeah,
So if we
Yeah.
keep that, I mean, we could even go and extend that part
right.
so that if the dwelling is right on the other side, then they've got to think that
Go back to
through.
maybe the 10-foot off from the
Property
line,
line, but,
but 10 foot from a line and a minimum distance from the nearest dwelling or building,
I mean,
occupied building. You know what I mean? That way,
Yeah, the dwellings are still protected, but.
yeah, right, that protects the occupied buildings from from being any closer to the occupied buildings than we want it to be, but it allows them to use a little bit more of their lot. Because if you have like say, if you have a lot that's 60 by 130 and you're in 20 feet from all of your lot lines, it kind of puts the chicken coop in the middle of the backyard. So I get that point completely.
Any further comments, questions, or concerns? And I know, Jim, you guys will go back and look at all this and
Right.
bring us something back to the table.
I mean, if the consensus of the council is that you want to move forward and adopting something, we can certainly make, if everybody's in agreement, we can make those changes. We can, if everybody agrees, we can keep it, bump it from 3 up to 6. And reduce the setbacks to 10 feet and then keep it still with the 20 feet from any dwelling.
Yeah, I might
So
be
if
inclined to
that's-
increase that.
Right.
That
And
number.
again, it's all about, how permissive do you want to be with it? And, it sounds like the opinion is to be more permissive than the zoning administrator and I were initially thinking, so. But ultimately, it's.
well, and I think the additional education and permits and stuff will help to
Right.
do that too.
So at this time, I will entertain a motion from council on one way or the other. If they want to go with the changes of 6 and then 10 feet with 20 from dwelling. Again, however you want to present the motion, if someone wants to
Yeah.
present a motion on it, to proceed forward so that they can present it.
Do we need a
as
motion or a
official.
consensus?
Or a consensus.
Yeah.
I think we have a consensus on the, everybody good with the 10-foot setback and maybe even go to 30 feet from an occupied building? What do you? Because if the setback distance is to protect the nearest occupied building from having to smell the chickens, then
Right. I would, I think 20 feet is probably still appropriate.
All right, well, if,
I know nothing about chickens.
So just to check, consensus that we are doing, that you guys are looking for 20 feet from dwelling, 10 feet from property line. Let's start with that consensus first. Is that,
I'm good.
looking for consensus down the board?
Yeah, if we're going in the right direction.
10 feet from the lot line, 20 feet from the dwelling,
Yep.
right?
all right.
We got consensus on that.
Okay.
Let's move to the actual number of chickens then. I know.
Right.
I'll let you guys discuss actual number of chickens. I know we have 6 down here. Is there any,
6 chickens is a lot of chickens.
Well, they have to have the allotted space too, though. Like, they can't just shove them all in a little
Right.
space, like they
If you got
have to
6
have the
chickens, you gotta
room.
have 60 square feet of run space and
Right,
a
4
24
square
square foot
feet per
building.
chicken.
So, yeah, 20, yeah, so number of chickens increases size of, I don't know that 6 chickens is a whole lot, I mean, how many eggs is that? If the purpose is to have eggs that you can have, they
I
can
mean, typically
have
it's
your
about one
fresh
a day
scrambled
from
eggs,
each
yeah.
chicken.
So maybe is 4 the right number or 6? I don't know, I mean, again, I don't know anything about chickens.
Well, and that, again, if we can figure out a way to grandfather the people in that already have their chickens for that rest of that, so that they
Right, I
don't.
mean, right, because we kind of have used 6 as a number.
Yeah,
so just to go down the line, consensus 6? Any argument
Anybody have
against
any
it?
Comments?
No, that's not the consent.
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
I-
still thinking.
Okay, so hold on. So you're
Yeah.
saying grandfather them in, but would they still have to have these requirements?
Yes. But, and that's what I'm saying. Typically, the people who have chickens are serious about having chickens. Like, they're not just like,
Hey, the people that we grandfather, will they be subject to these rules?
That's what I mean.
yes.
Yeah,
It would just
that's
be
what
those
she's
6
saying.
until they lose those, and then it kind of goes down.
I guess the only question I have after I read this thing is, It's been designed so it's pretty difficult to have chickens, bottom line. Number two is, I'm still not clear who will enforce this ordinance. Does this fall with the zoning administrator or the police, or?
This will be a zoning ordinance, so it'll
So
fall
it'll
under,
be up to Daryl to measure the spaces and make sure we have so many square feet per chicken and stuff like that.
right, so essentially, the coop and the run will be much like inspecting a shed that's under 150 square feet. So those, the zoning administrator goes out and inspects, make sure that it's, where they said it was gonna be in the backyard, and that it's not, twice as big as they said on the application. Beyond that, it really becomes as much of an animal control issue as a zoning issue. Now, if we get reports that somebody has 20 chickens, Daryl will send a letter to them. As it would still be a municipal infraction like any other zoning violation. But putting this in our
How long will they have
code
to
makes
correct
it.
their problem? What's the
Right.
timetable there?
So we need to notify, I want to say that for a zoning violation, we give them notification, and then they have 2 weeks to correct it before we issue fines. Health and sanitation is a little shorter time period, but again, depending upon what the violation would be, if somebody is not cleaning their coop or run and allowing chicken manure to pile up and it's creating a health concern, that could be more a health and sanitation violation, which again falls to the code enforcement officer. The window to correct that is a little bit shorter than a zoning violation. A little different process there, but it still falls under code enforcement.
Well, it is a health concern, but
Right. But so are, for that matter, so are dogs and cats. We struggle to get people to pick up after their pets. And, there are going to be people that are very responsible
it looks like
and
we're
people that
trying
aren't.
to design a ordinance so the people who have illegal chickens right now can continue to have chickens. That seems like the primary reason for this. There's not really an overwhelming demand for more chicken houses in town, I don't think.
Well,
And
there are
it's-
some people that were calling and asking and being told no. So we may see some people, but I don't think it'll be like an overwhelming amount of people. I think it's just gonna be more people who wanna be self-reliant or, have their own eggs, not spend that extra money at the supermarket, or, I don't think we're gonna see.
Well,
a
with three
huge amount of people
chickens,
with
you're
pet
not gonna
chickens.
get many eggs.
So you say you get
Which is
one
why
egg
the-
a day from each chicken, typically.
But if we raise them to 6, then you'll get twice as many.
And if you're
Maybe.
lucky, maybe your neighbors will give you some of
But
it.
you don't have a
Get them.
rooster,
Right, so no babies.
so whether they lay or not's another question.
Oh, yeah, they'll still lay, but you'll be able to eat them.
This is really kind of silly to me, but that's just my opinion.
So are you okay with him keep going with where he's going? Like, would that work, just to continue on, just to come up with something,
Well, I don't see how this is enforceable. I can't. It seems like we could use Daryl's time better than going out and measuring to see if we got X number of square feet per chicken.
Well, probably, but I
And,
don't
and
know that
if,
it
and
would be that often.
if that will ever happen, which I doubt that it ever will, why do we have it in the ordinance?
Well, the alternative to this is that whenever if someone complains about somebody's chickens, they have to be told to get rid of them. And when people call in, we tell them, no, you can't have chickens. And that becomes the final answer. Either you're gonna say yes or you're gonna say no. If you're gonna say yes, then you need to have an ordinance. If you're gonna say no, that's what our ordinance currently states, then you stick by that and do what the ordinance says.
We have to enforce the ordinances that we have
If,
there.
if we do end up
I
saying
guess the
no,
point I'm trying to make, if it don't allow chickens now, but people have chickens, and we're not doing anything about it. So if we pass an ordinance allowing people to have chickens, and we have all these guidelines about how their coops should be and how far the setbacks they are and how many square feet per chicken and all this kind of stuff, chances are we're not gonna enforce that either.
Well, believe it or
So
not, most.
why don't we just leave it like it is and let people have chickens if they want to? And just look the other way.
Because then we're purposely,
cares?
we're purposely admitting we're looking the other way on our
Why would we
ordinance.
have to address it? We don't address it if somebody's got 12 cats.
Well,
We
I
just,
think we did
we just
that.
did that.
Not long
Well, I,
I think most of the requirements are like kind of a common sense requirement that most chicken owners already have. So it won't take Daryl long to check them, just to make sure and make some suggestions, just like if he was checking somebody's shed.
Well, I'm sure
think
most
we
chicken
probably-
most chicken owners are responsible people.
Right, right. And most, like, we had people that throw sheds up that are monstrosities and aren't where they're supposed to be because they don't bother telling anybody. And, he
But-
has to go out and deal with those too. So it's kind of a give and take on all fronts.
And like any other zoning ordinance, it is enforcement is complaint driven. If no one complains about it, there's no reason for Daryl to go out and look at it.
Right.
And the only time that they would be,
So their neighbors are in charge. If there's a problem, the neighbors will tell you.
yes.
we're just restructuring, in my opinion, the ordinance to actually work how.
So we're
intended
allowing,
to do.
so that's where the enforcement's gonna come from. is The neighbors.
Yes.
Oh, now I understand.
Yes,
I
yes,
get it.
yes,
It's self-policing. Man,
exactly.
that's cool.
It's that way now, if people have chickens, it's only because their neighbors have not complained about it.
Right.
Because if the neighbors complained about it, under the current ordinance, we'd have to tell them to get rid of it. So that's where we are today.
Well, I'm obviously in the minority.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily,
I
Jerry.
mean, we will move forward in whatever direction you guys tell us. So, I don't like to really sit here and say that we don't enforce, our ordinances. We do make the effort. Now, there are times where we have a property owner who is not cooperative when we send letters out, and those cases tend to drag on for a very long time. On occasion, we do bring that before mayor and council when we have one that is generating complaints, and, we've sent letter after letter after letter, and we want to move forward with beyond fines, so with actually taking something to court, and we get the city attorney involved. That's not cheap, so we tend to only do that where there's, something of a health concern, or we are just getting, complaint after complaint, and we're making no headway with the property owner. But we always make, when somebody calls in a complaint, just as I used to do, Daryl goes out and checks on it. If he can verify it, he will, leave a notice in the door, leave his card in the door, send a letter if they don't call him back. So we do make the attempt. We do attempt to enforce things. And most of the time, folks comply. More often than not, there might be some grumbling, or oftentimes it's just, oh, I didn't realize that I needed to get a permit, or that, I couldn't do whatever. And people are, many folks are, I think, the way I would be, that if I got a letter from the city saying I did something wrong, I'd be like in a tizzy, thinking, oh geez, I gotta take care of this, because I don't wanna be, not conforming with the requirements. But there are a lot of folks that, it's the 80-20 rule, you spend most of your time, 80% of your time on the 20% of people that don't, operate. And I'm sure this will be no
Speaking to some of
different.
those municipalities that ended up doing the ordinance, it wasn't as much of a headache as they thought it would be.
Yeah.
And it did take care of some of the problems with people having, you know, chickens in their backyard that were unsupervised or, you know, Yeah. Yes.
So, do we have a number we're thinking? I think, do we have 3 people that want 6? Is there a consensus on
And 6 is just the maximum.
Yeah,
They still
maximum.
have to meet the requirements for the space. And like I said, typically 3 is considered the minimum because they do have to have a flock.
But I'm just thinking that and I kind of, if you're going to have chickens to have eggs for breakfast, and mom and dad and a couple of kids, you want 6 or 8 eggs, so 6, I think is a good number. You were talking even then at 10 square feet per chicken and 4 square feet inside a coop, you're still looking at a building that's less than 100 square feet. Or a structure in a pen that's less than 100 square feet. So it's not like we're talking about anything big here. So that's where I am. Y'all,
So 6?
I'm good at 6.
Good with max of 6. Good with max of 6. Good with max of 6.
I can live with it.
I'll get you some eggs.
We'll make those changes, send it over to the city attorney for his review, and get an ordinance number put on it and have it back for you guys for introduction next month. Then it will go to because it is a zoning ordinance, then it'll go to the planning commission for their review, public hearing at the next workshop, and so on. So it'll be back before you at least 2 more times.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Moving on from chickens, we are at the Taneytown Police Department holiday leave policy. So we originally talked about this back in September. In your packets, you guys will have been provided the policy that we are looking to implement here. And I know are we looking to get consensus for Acting Chief Mitchell to implement or for council to implement?
I'm going to let you drive this one. So it's,
So it can go one of 2 ways. It can be like how we did it last time where Acting Chief Mitchell as implemented, and then we'll see it again later down the road as an
that,
over.
right. I mean, that certainly works.
That's how-
Functionally, that's right. But again, it all depends upon what council thinks about moving forward with it.
And that would be do comments, questions, concerns on what has been proposed here. I know last time we didn't have the police liaison here, so I wanted to see this presented one more time to see.
Well, I mean, first,
Good
I just
guard.
have to say, I'm glad that we actually got something in writing that actually says what was wanted, I guess. We never had that. I think since September, that was every time it came to us, we said, just give it to us in writing. I think the only thing that we're missing is any kind of comparison between the two.
Yeah,
I
I'd like to
did
see
email
what's in
that out,
place
I
now.
thought,
Well,
to,
I was going to ask the question, does Sykesville have an ordinance like this?
so of all the municipalities in Carroll County, we're the only one that does not have some sort of holiday time off.
And honestly, I think that's absurd.
And
But is that
These
like-
are our
is that-
public
Mount Airy,
safety.
Mount
Oh, or
Airy
holiday
didn't
time.
respond to
I
us.
would just,
Absurd.
I would just like to go down each town that has a police department and confirm they do or they don't have an ordinance like this.
They do.
Does
And here's-
Sykesville have an ordinance like this? Does Mount Airy have an ordinance
Yes,
like this?
yes,
Yes, everybody,
except for Taunton.
Everybody but us.
We
We're the ones
say
behind the
everybody, but
curve.
I want it to be on record that each one of these towns that I mentioned has an ordinance like this before I vote for it.
I also
You know,
think
it's one thing to, I understand we need to retain a viable police force. But it seems like we're giving big city benefits to small town police forces. And I don't have any problems giving people what they want. But I just want to know if this is an accepted practice for municipalities our size. So, does Sykesville have an ordinance like this?
yes.
Yes.
Not
Does Mount Airy have an ordinance like this?
Mount Airy didn't respond to us.
Yeah, as I'm,
We asked
does,
all the municipalities about their holiday leave policy.
Does Westminster have
And
an ordinance
they
like that?
they all had a holiday leave policy, except Mount Airy is the only one that didn't
Are their
reply.
holiday leave policies close to what we're proposing here?
Yes, if you give me a moment, I'm working to find the comparison. I believe I sent that out to everybody a couple weeks ago, but
I
let me
also
find
think
it.
it's important to note that our city staff has a holiday leave policy. So,
Well, and what did we have before when the previous chief came to us and asked us to change it?
Right, that was done at the same time that we shifted from a 10-hour to a 12-hour shift for the police department. That was a way the former chief saw, I guess, as a means to offset some of the additional expense of moving to the 12-hour shifts. Was, it seemed at the time that the department was supportive of the 12-hour shifts and was willing to forego the holidays, which turned out not to be the case. And there was some discussion about how it was presented to the officers and things like that.
And that's what I think it just needs to be made clear. It's not that we denied them something. We were offered
Right,
this plan, however many years ago it was. We were told that's what they wanted. And then when they came to us and said they wanted to change it to something else, all we did was ask for something in writing.
right.
And it took almost 6 months for that to happen, even longer than that. So
And, yeah.
we're getting there.
I-
Like, we would like to work with them. We would like to give them what they want. We just want to have something to look at to say, this is going to work, so that in another year, they don't come back and say, nope, that wasn't what we wanted either. We were just kidding.
Right. So on September 15th, I emailed you a comparison to all the other departments that did respond. So Sykesville, if you work the holiday, you're paid time and a half. Let's see, you only get paid if you work, not on the day as observed. Off the holiday, they get paid for the holiday straight time. So if you work, you get paid time and a half. If you don't work, you get a paid day off. Sheriff's Office, of course, different level of things.
Not really concerned with
Right.
the sheriff's
Okay.
office. That
Okay.
doesn't have anything to do with us.
Westminster, advanced holiday leaves provided to employees regardless of assignment. They're given 100 hours of holiday leave, 50 given on July 1st and 50 given on June 1st. Percentage, let's see, holiday hours are expected to be used on the observed holiday for non-essential employees. For essential employees, they can take holiday leave whenever with supervisory approval. In Manchester, they get 14 holidays. If they work the holiday, they get paid time and a half.
and they're not even asking for time
I
and a
mean,
half.
I don't
And,
need the detail.
Yeah, Hampstead, 13 holidays.
I just need to know whether they have something that addresses what we're trying to address here.
So-
Whether it's technically line for line, item for item, doesn't really matter. But I just want to make sure that we're being
Right.
compliant with other municipalities in the county.
And
So if
we answered that back at the September meeting, though. This is bringing us into compliance with the other municipalities. That is, we answered that question at the last meeting because we did have that information. We answered it here.
Well, at the last meeting, I asked the question, you said everybody's got one except one. Well, that doesn't give me the detail that I want.
so
I want to know specifically per municipality, whether we got one or we don't.
So September 15th, we did send that out, the comparison of the other municipalities. That was sent
I'll
out.
be honest, Jim, this didn't open for me when I tried to
Oh.
read it with your original.
You got
Oh, okay.
So I apologize. I thought you
Okay.
just sent a little blank document
I
last time.
somehow missed that. I don't
Yeah.
think I got that.
Yeah,
but
so I'm not sure.
I will look for it, but
Okay.
I mean,
I don't remember seeing that.
It was in the weekly,
Yeah, it was, September
Well, they put it in
15th.
your weekly thing, right?
back in September 15th, yeah.
Here it is. I do have one question on it. For the non-essential employees, essentially staff, why would they simply not be under the same leave policy as the rest of the city staff?
So that's something that I think we would like the new chief to take a look at the leave policy overall for the whole department. This really would be kind of a stopgap until the new chief can come in and look at the leave policy overall, because we think that policy also needs some updates beyond just the holiday leave. But, you know, what's being perceived as a, you know, more of a hot button issue is the holiday leave right now. So this hopefully could get us through for a few months until the new chief is on board and settled in and has the opportunity to take a look at the overall leave policy, because that we think has some holes in it too.
Any further discussion on it? I am looking for a motion, one way or the other, to allow Acting Chief Mitchell to implement this policy.
And this would carry through until the new chief
Right.
took a look and
You
decided.
guys will
So-
see it again as well when we go to actually bring the policy book
All
for
right, I'll make that
adoption.
motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Next up, we have the monthly financial report. Any questions, comments, or concerns regarding it?
I do have one question. The report, you know, obviously we have our total annual budget in here and the current to date and the period and total expenditures to date. But there's no way to compare that back against the budget unless you just simply divide the budget by 12 and look at it that way.
Yeah.
Is there any, you know, in construction, we are always checking our costs back against, you know, against budgets. But that's what I'm wondering is there some way, we don't see any kind of comparison to budget here for expenditures versus what we think we should have spent that month. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, a lot of the expenses are not level throughout the year. We do have some that, you know, spike.
Right. I
and-
don't know
and,
if there was some mechanism
right.
that we can come up with that would account
Yeah, I
encompass
think,
that.
and I'm sure everybody has their own way of viewing this, but I know for myself, I like to look at the percentage of the total budget remaining and just, you know, do a quick, you know, little bit of math in my head. So, you know, when we get to December, we're halfway through the year, 50% of the budget year, and then I like to look at that column. So, you know, it's, I mean, I tend to focus on it a little bit more each quarter. So, you know,
I
again.
just didn't know if there was some
right,
way
so-
other than just a simple straight line.
So, right, so that's usually the column that I focus on. So, you know, okay, we're 25% of the way through the year and we've used, you know, X percent,
Right.
you know, or we have X percent left. So, you know, we're on target, you know, for the rest of the year. Or if there's something that kind of spikes where, you know, we've used 80% of the budget and it's only September and we've got to make it all the way through June, that's the kind of thing that, you know, would be questionable. And that might be, oh, well, we have an annual debt service and we pay that once a year and then we're done. You know, but that's how I kind of review this report. But I can certainly consult with Barry and see if there is maybe a different format or something that we can, you know, include another comment or something if there's, I don't know how.
And it may be
versatile
too
the
complex to try to
reporting
do for
is
this level
without-
of report.
yeah.
But it was just, it was
Yeah.
a question, because it's like, you
Yeah.
see the expenditures, but you don't know,
And-
other than just a quick math in your head.
Yes.
You don't know how you're doing.
Right, and I know like with our capital projects, as you were saying, you know, with Broad Street, for example, you know, we have, you know, line by line, you know, here's what the project budget was, here's the percent complete, here's the budget percent complete, so we know if we're staying
Right,
in.
if you're in the right place.
In sync or not. So, right, I certainly understand that level of detail as relates to construction stuff, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I did, just asking the question.
Yep.
Additional comments, questions, or concerns from council? Hearing none, we need a motion on this tonight, correct, since we're doing a combined?
right.
Looking for a motion to approve the monthly financial report.
I move to accept the monthly financial report.
Looking for a second.
Oh, second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Carries. Accounts payables. Questions, comments, or concerns from the council? Hearing none, I am looking for a motion to accept the accounts payables.
Make a motion to pay accounts.
Looking for a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Carries. So crossing guard discussion. About 2.5 weeks ago, I'm not sure if everybody's been following on the community pages, the bus routes for Carroll County changed a bit. Parents were informed that they are now enforcing the 1 mile rule at the county level as far as bus routes goes. That means there was a significant increase in kids who are walking to school from the back neighborhoods, Meadowbrook. I think Meads is still they're still getting bus rides, but there was a heavy increase at the Baumgardner intersection where kids are crossing over to get to the schools. To kind of stopgap that till we got to the council meeting, I worked with the sheriff's department where he put his SRO out to watch Keens Court, Keens Drive as a crossing guard, and then we moved our city crossing guard up to Baumgardner for 2.5 weeks. And I did that as a stopgap till we could come to this council session to see if council has any interest in bringing on a second crossing guard to serve at Baumgardner. And
Jim,
just,
didn't we try to do this before and State Highway had an issue with having the
This-
person at Baumgardner?
This has come up every couple years, and the crossing guard was, before there was a signal at Baumgardner Avenue, we had a crossing guard there. That is the, I suppose, recommended route for the school kids to take from the neighborhoods back there. It's one of the few areas where there's a contiguous sidewalk all the way to Baltimore Street and then to the school from there. When streetscape was done and the signal was installed at the light, the pedestrian signals went up as well. So at that point, the crossing guard really, the only function they had was more or less to make sure the kids were not crossing, across the green. So the intersection was considered to be safe for pedestrians, including school kids, because now there's a traffic light there, there's a pedestrian signal, and there's also the lead pedestrian interval. So you push the button, all the traffic stops for at least 7 seconds. But, we do get periodic complaints from motorists that children are crossing not at the crosswalk, but half a block away, or they're crossing when the light on Baltimore Street is green, and things of that nature. So we certainly see that there's not great crosswalk discipline with the school kids. And so Mayor Miller's suggestion was, when this came up again this year in response to some kids who used to be able to ride the bus and can no longer do so, the parents were very concerned. And the mayor suggested, and we had a very long conversation about it. And, looking at it as a temporary, maybe we can put our crossing guard out there for a couple weeks to get the kids used to, crossing at the right time and kind of help them develop the good habit and try to enforce that while she's out there and sort of ease the transition period for those kids who hadn't had to walk previously. So again, we stopped having a second crossing guard because the lights were put in. The crossing guard was there when it was just a stop sign and Baltimore Street didn't have to stop. So with the signal, it was deemed unnecessary to have the crossing guard there, but obviously a lot of parents feel differently.
and I think you can still turn right on that light, even if it is red. And that's a concern that was brought to me by some of the parents. And I'll say, after we did the temporary measure, I had overwhelmingly people messaging me, hey, this is a change we'd like to see permanently, and that's why I just wanted the council to hear it out, whether they believe it's something. I believe one of the primary reasons people pay taxes is to see security and safety in their towns, as well as public utilities. The crossing guard right now costs about $10,200 a year. They get paid $18.68 an hour. Again, we double that to get a second one. But $10,000 in relative spending for safety and security of children, to me, is really not that much.
And it is a
Like
lot
Jim
of
said,
kids.
for years,
It
we
is a
had
lot of
crossing
kids.
guards.
It is
I
a
mean,
lot of kids crossing there.
I thought I remembered there being a crossing guard
this is something
there
that was
6
part of
years
our
ago, 6 or 8 years ago.
community structure for years, and again, since streetscape and the automated crossing signs and traffic lights, we haven't needed that. Now, maybe there's
The problem
some
is,
change that has occurred that causes us
yes,
to reconsider this, but
There is the
the,
change.
the fact that kids are not crossing at the crosswalk is not gonna change whether you have a crossing guard there or not. They're gonna cross where they wanna cross until somebody tells them they can't do it. And, if we had our police department and a community policing effort to try to curb that or train the kids to cross the crossing guard for a few weeks, that might solve the problem.
We
But
have
like
2
you
officers
say,
per shift.
the amount of money that's involved really doesn't make any difference, but I really don't think a crossing guard's gonna make any difference. So, it's
there a
window
way-
dressing, in my opinion.
Is there a way to separate and create a secondary crossing area instead of all the kids bombarding that one
no, because
crosswalk?
there's no other, that's the only,
That's the only place they
place
have
where
to
there's a
cross.
cross. And it is a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Well, because they can't find bus drivers.
Yeah.
Well, with the Roberts Mill Road project, there will now be sidewalk on one side of the road, contiguous all the way from Tawny Drive down to the park. So we've had that, currently, the sidewalk ends where, I guess it was the Roberts Mill Run subdivision has like 1 or 2 houses that face Roberts Mill Road by Baumgartner.
Okay.
Just west of Baumgartner's, there's 1 or 2 houses that are more modern, and the road is a little wider there, and there's sidewalk in front of those homes. But then west of that, all the way, past the American Legion, the senior center, there's no sidewalk on that side of the road at all, and there's no sidewalk between, I guess, Antrim, let's see. I guess Antrim Boulevard and Baumgartner. There's, just a couple little sections of sidewalk. So we will have sidewalk all along Roberts Mill Road now, and we'll also have sidewalk all the way down Broad Street on one side. And Broad Street in East Baltimore is not terribly far from the Trevanian Road crosswalk, so that might be a good alternate route for some of the kids that are going to Baumgartner now, because now they'll have sidewalk to go down Roberts Mill Road.
They still have to cross the road.
But they still have to cross.
They do.
They have to
I
cross
thought-
The light
140.
at Trevanian also has the lead.
But again,
the lead-
right.
Part of
but-
the problem
but it's
with
another
State
signalized
Highway was that they
intersection.
didn't want to upset the light cycle. So if there's that many kids going to one spot,
Right, it's still.
they don't want her letting the kids continue going once that light has turned
Right.
green.
And
That's-
we're not doing
Well,
that.
and that's
We've-
what,
Right.
it would be nice to have had her come in and just, or say something, like,
Hmm.
how is it working? Is it too many kids? Does something else need to be done? Or are we just gonna assume that these kids who don't know how to use a crosswalk are gonna listen to her tell them to stop because the light's turning red? I mean, it seems like if we're paying a babysitter, that she should be able to do that job. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility to put on one person if that's not gonna be a good spot to do it in. I mean, I don't care if we have to hire 3 more, if we can find a better way to do it.
Now, in some places, the crossing guards have the ability to hold the light. Because I've seen that in some places. I guess the state won't allow us to do that.
Would need to check in with State Highway on that. I'm not aware of that
Like when she's at the
Ability
box and she
in
changes the
Maryland.
timing so it stays
Yeah.
red.
I think we need to check with that.
Because it's like a 20-minute time period where they're, like, yesterday when I went by, my school starts later than Taneytown does, so as I'm going to work, it is a lot of kids. It is a mob of kids.
Well, and I'm not surprised.
And it's not a safe situation, I don't think, without a crossing guard there.
But again, she's got to be working with the light that she has because if a
And I think
truck's
that she
barreling
is.
down
She
the
is,
road.
she's
I mean, I don't know why
working,
she
I mean,
wouldn't.
I stopped out
Yeah.
there while she was performing the duty. She is working at the light, instructing them, start crossing when the light is
And the
red.
kids are listening.
From when I was out there, the kids were listening.
I mean, I don't want to put an extra responsibility on this one poor woman to try to control kids that maybe don't want to be controlled. So,
But I mean, it seems like it's working now.
That's what,
With her?
from, when I went out there and checked, it looked like it was working. What I've received feedback from residents and people who have been traveling the road is even the people who are just traveling the road feel better that there's a crossing guard out there. Because, yeah, it makes you uneasy when there's a bunch of kids running across the road and you're trying to drive through town. I mean, it is doing its purpose. It is doing its job, and I think the residents have seen that it's doing the job. I think their question is why can't we have it permanently?
All right, so the question is, do we need another crossing guard to go to wherever? I'm not sure where the intersection is that the CRO is now.
So it was Keen's Court, Keen's Drive, was that it? Yeah, Keen's Court, Keen's Drive, that's where we've always had it. That's where Roxanne was before she went up to Baumgartner. So the SRO took over Keen's Court, Keen Drive, and we moved Roxanne to Baumgartner.
Okay.
So the idea would be Roxanne would either move back to Keen's Court, well, currently, starting tomorrow, she'll be back at Keen's Court, Keen Drive, and we won't have Baumgartner. However, I mean, if we're able to get something worked out again, I'm sure I could reach out to the sheriff and get him to give a stopgap as we start filling in this role as well. Which I don't want to put words, again, I'd reach out to him and see if we can't get that stopgap put back into place until this actually comes into effect, until we actually get another crossing guard out there. But
Do we
I
have
need
enough
to
spot
know-
in the budget to pull the money to pay this person?
Crossing guard is in a separate category from police. So while police salaries are way under budget because of the vacancies, you know, the other line items for the non-officer salaries are pretty much on target budget-wise. So, you know, we certainly under the general category of police, we could, you know, we won't go over budget in public safety overall by spending $10,000 because we're, you know, we've been short police officers. So for this budget year, I think we could swing it, you know, whether we need to, you know, to do a budget amendment at some point to move money out of, and I don't have the budget right in front of me, but, you know,
But yeah, we get.
out of police salary to other public safety, you know, or police admin. I'm not sure what the categories is where the administrative person and crossing guard are, but it's a separate little sub-budget for the public safety budget.
And are we good, if we get a consensus on that, are we good to start moving forward on getting this worked out
I would
until we
say, do you
get?
need a motion?
Certainly, you know, make sure we have the job description updated and current
Yeah.
and advertise.
And we'll get the budget amendment put together.
Right, and we may not need to do an amendment, it's not a huge
Yeah.
dollar amount, but I would want to consult with the treasurer and see, just because of the way the crossing guard is broken out from other police salaries, you know, just to make sure we do
Do we
it
need a
properly.
motion to approve this position?
Um,
Or are you good with consensus?
Well, we're not, right, we're not having to amend the budget at this point. We're not creating a new job function, so we have a job description. So if the consensus is to move forward with another crossing guard, I think we can, you know, again, review the description, make sure it's current and legit, and, because it's been a long time since we've advertised for a crossing guard. Roxanne's been with us for a very long time. And when we did have a second crossing guard, it was a little bit of a challenge to keep that position filled, you know, and have somebody that was going to show up every day and be there every day, you know, not calling out. It's not a high-paying role, so it may not be the easiest thing to fill. to have somebody that's going to come out there for, an hour in the morning and then come out again for an hour in the afternoon.
You might be able to get one of those moms that's, that is so in favor of having this
That's,
I mean,
done.
that's, who
I mean,
knows,
it-
it's
That might
certainly
be
a,
your pool of
it's
candidates.
certainly a possibility.
Just to get it out
They
there.
used to just do it because it
Right.
was their kids.
But, yeah, but I mean, certainly we can, if consensus is to move forward with that, we'll go ahead and start.
That's fine. I'm looking for a consensus, or if there's any further discussion, comments, questions, concerns.
I don't mind going with the consensus and saying yes, but I would like to have a follow-up and just make sure that that is appropriate and that it's actually doing what it's supposed to be. I mean, if we're paying somebody to just go out and
Okay,
wrangle kids,
fine.
then
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that too. I mean, let's get a consensus. How are we looking?
Jim, you guys?
And we'll follow up in November with kind of an update of what it's looking like. I'll reach out to see if we can get some collaboration to get a stopgap until we do find somebody to fill the position. And if, again, consensus is looking like,
what do you think, Diane?
Okay.
Jim?
I think we're good.
That's all you need.
I agree. Consensus is to move forward on it. So let's go ahead and do council member reports starting to the left. Councilmember Tillman?
Let me dig up my stuff here. All right. So we had a fairly quiet planning commission meeting recently. There wasn't anything really new pushed out. The Recovery 180 site plan, I believe, was approved on preliminary. Am I correct? We issued preliminary approval. with
Conditional, I think
conditional
we're still waiting
preliminary
for a
approval.
letter or two.
Right.
Yes.
So, other than that, there are a few things out there in the wind, but nothing that actually came before us at the last meeting. So it was a fairly quiet meeting. So so I really don't have a whole lot to report.
Ms. Cheney?
Okay, I talked with Bob Mitchell today, and he had good news. We've hired a new officer. Dylan Blaze has been hired and started his service on September 27th. He's currently completing administrative requirements and will begin field training as soon as that is over. The other good news is that members of the department were at the Northwest Middle September 11th tribute, and all the students placed a flag out for every person who lost their life that day. Was an amazing ceremony. If you haven't seen the video, it's on the Carroll County Public Schools website. So a huge thank you to the officers that took time out of their day to be there, because that was a touching tribute. As far as calls for service, there were 288 in September. There were 17 total citations issued, 58 warnings issued, and 10 adult arrests. As far as training, all active officers received training in cultural awareness and diversity. They also received hate crimes training for law enforcement and implicit bias training. And as always, we thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you, thank you.
Well, economic development was busy this month, I guess. We're getting prepped for the small business Saturday at the end of November, but Maish was able to attend a national conference for economic development directors in Texas this past month, and I think this is a good thing for us to do, is encourage our department heads to participate in events like this. I think not only in economic development, but I hope all of our department heads, I know that was a struggle when I was mayor, that to try to get everybody involved at that level, and it is either the state or the national level in their particular areas of responsibility, because you really learn a lot. You know, you become stagnant if you never leave town. And when you get out and you talk about your job with your peers, you're able to grow. So I was encouraged to see that Mitch was able to go to that. Another thing Meach passed me on, you know, we have, Carroll County Times has the Best in Carroll contest every year, and I was very, I don't know, not surprised is not the word, but I was very pleased to see the number of Taneytown businesses that were represented in the Best of Carroll this year. Antrim 1844 was best banquet facility, best bed and breakfast, best romantic dining, honorable mention, and as a wedding venue. Cutting Edge Custom Painting was honorable mention as a painting contractor. J. Turnball Plumbing and Heating, honorable mention as a plumbing contractor. Lori and of Taneytown's honorable mention as assisted living facility, and honorable mention as a nursing home. Antrim Mini Storage, honorable mention as a storage facility. Bounds Accounting and Tax Service, honorable mention as an accounting office. New Beginnings Christian Learning Center, best licensed daycare center. And that's pretty impressive for that, because there's a lot of them. PSJ Orthodontics, best orthodontics care. Buddy's Place, best pet grooming salon. Kraus Ford, honorable mention in auto dealers and new cars and used cars. Taneytown Auto Parts, honorable mention in auto parts. And George's on York Street,
There it is.
honorable
Wondered if he
mention.
was gonna remember you.
Is that, I say the best to last. That's right. Honorable mention is the bed and breakfast. You know, that's quite a list for our small town, considering that, you know, we're stuck up here in the northwest corner of the county, and the population base is everywhere else. So I think we should be proud of what our businesses have done, and that should speak loudly to folks who want to locate a business in a thriving community. We are that. So I hope we can continue to build on that momentum, or use that as momentum to do what we need to do. What else was I gonna say? Seems like there was something else I was gonna say about it in economic development, but I didn't make a note of it, so I guess I won't. But anyway, that's my report.
I just had, with regards to your comment earlier about Senator Reedy's comments about the grant funding for the DPW building, I do have a call into the governor's office to the representative who wanted to come out and visit our area. Have not heard back, but I will light a fire under him, because they wanted to come out and meet with us and tour the area. So when I get some response, I will let you know.
Very good, thank you.
All right, Parks and Rec. As always, there's lots going on and lots happening in each of the parks. Bollinger Park, we're aiming to have that park open by the end of October, as long as the weather cooperates. We continue to pave the trail and construct the 2 boardwalks. The solar lighting's gonna be installed next week, and the entrance and parking lot will then be paved. Signage and site amenities will also be installed, as well as the security camera system, which is also solar powered. We have to say thank you very much to Dan, our IT guy, for all of his work with Vern Rodkey to facilitate the solar powered cameras. I know that part was quite a challenge. The Memorial Park expansion, Arrow is making some slight revisions to the preliminary site plan in order to address comments made by the county during their review process. We're meeting with field lighting contractor and a building contractor to get a better picture of anticipated construction costs. The fall park and playground inspections were conducted, and everything's in great shape. We have to thank our Public Works Department for all of their work in helping us ensure that our parks are the best that they can be for our community's enjoyment. The 12th Annual Harvest Fest was held this past Saturday at Memorial Park. It was an absolutely beautiful day. The weather was a little scary in the morning, but turned out great. There was a great turnout. People enjoyed the vendors and all of the food. The fall flea market that was changed from last Saturday, or the previous Saturday, is going to be held this Saturday from 9 to 2, also at Memorial Park. Then on Saturday, October 28th, we're going to have our Tales of Taneytown Pet Costume Contest and Parade from 3 to 5. The Chamber of Commerce's, Commerce's Trunk or Treat will be held at the same time, both at Memorial Park. So if you have a pet and you'd like to enter the contest, please do. You can win some great prizes. Both events are free, so bring the whole family. The adult tennis clinics are running through October 10th. Participants have said they are really enjoying this program. Also, the tennis court, basketball court lights were retrofitted to LED lights. Fern Rodkey got us a great rebate from Potomac Edison, and we now have better, brighter lights and are looking forward to the energy savings. Finally, the annual photography contest is running through the end of the month. Please send in those pictures for a chance to win gift cards and free pavilion rentals. In the past, we have had some absolutely astounding pictures, and we just love to see them. So get them in now, and I believe that is it for me. Oh, wait, the meeting is next week, next Wednesday, Parks and Rec.
Sounds good. Before we get to public comment pertaining to agenda items, I just want to give a quick update on the police chief search. We're entering the beginning of the interview process here next week. The hope
Remember
is,
what I was gonna say now.
the hope is to get, you want to say it real quick?
I can save it for another time. Let me make a real quick comment. I remembered what I was gonna say. A week ago, we attended a wedding in a place called Ellicottville, New York. Now, that may not mean anything to anybody, and what does that have to do with us? Well, it was kind of an eye-opening event. Ellicottville is about a town, just about the same size as Taneytown, maybe a little smaller. It's about the same distance from a major metro area, 45 miles from Buffalo, New York. It's near ski areas like Taneytown is, Whitetail and Liberty. And there was a thriving downtown community that I'm going to spend some time talking to Mish about. There's a lot of similarities between our two towns. We stayed in a lovely bed and breakfast, by the way. I'll give that honorable
How
mention
lovely
too.
was it?
But it was a very pleasant experience, and there was a lot of activity downtown. Here was really kind of off-season. The leaves were starting to change, but that wasn't the draw. They weren't at peak yet. But there was all kinds of activity downtown, all kinds of things to do, all kinds of different shops. And I just think that if a small town like Ellicottville, New York can show that excitement downtown, we ought to be able to do something similar. So I just wanted to mention that I'm gonna be working with Mish on that a little bit to see if he can plug into some of the similarities that I saw up there.
Thank you. To go back, so police chief search, we're going into the interview phase next week. We have the police liaison, Councilwoman Cheney on the panel, a couple different agencies on the panel, hoping to get a nomination appointment to you guys in November. I think council will be decently pleased with the candidates that we have currently, that have currently applied. And I think a week or two, I'll be attending the MML Fall Conference, where I'll be chairing the Young Municipal Leaders Caucus for MML. Hoping to come back with some information from that conference. And I just want to take the time to thank council for keeping an open mind on the subjects that we went over today. I believe we got a lot done in the benefit of the citizens. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Other than that, public comment pertaining to agenda items.
I just have a couple of questions, and my husband's feeding them.
Come up to
I just have a couple of questions. My husband's feeding the meter, so he'll be back in a second. Question on the chickens is, I know nothing about it. We recently moved to the area. Does that, anyone who has chickens, is their yard, does that have to be enclosed in a fence? Yes or no? Do we know that?
So currently, the city code prohibits animal husbandry, so we advise people not to get chickens. So this ordinance that will be introduced next month will essentially allow people to have chickens, and they will have to be in an enclosed run. For folks who may have chickens currently, I would certainly hope that they are not free-ranging. We don't get a lot of complaints about chickens being found on other people's property. But we have heard, we are aware that there are some coops in the city already, even though we tell people no animal husbandry.
The answer is they need to be in a
So-
coop and not just free on the property.
So, right, so going forward, they will have to be in a coop or a run, an enclosed area.
But that doesn't, okay, so they have to be in that coop at all times. It's not where they can be in the backyard.
Yes.
Yes.
It's supposed
Okay.
to be in a run, yes.
Okay, and so therefore, it's not necessary, or you're not stipulating that
They have a fence.
they have a fence. Okay. And just a side note, as a resident, it's kind of disconcerting to hear that some ordinances may not be enforced. That's a little disconcerting. I hope that's not the case. And as far as the crossing guard goes, I think safety is important. And if a child, God forbid, is injured or killed, it's going to cost the city a heck of a lot more in a lawsuit. So I don't really think that that's an expenditure that should be overlooked. I think it's necessary, and I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Mind, your name and address, if you don't mind? Sorry. Oh, sorry, yeah, you could just tell
Oh,
us if you want.
Christina Lawrence, I live on Colbert Street in Taneytown.
Just so they have the record over there. You spoke and everything. Jim, did you?
Do you have something?
You're good.
John Lawrence, her husband, and I never thought I'd be making a comment on backyard chickens, but I think I heard the city manager say in the beginning of the discussion that you had consulted some kind of county expert, and it sounded like the standard practice is that these are generally in 1 acre type lots and with quite a large setback, like 75 feet. It seems to me that these kind of standards are kind of evolved just on what works for people. So I'm a little worried when we talk about, hey, we're going to cut that down to maybe 1/4 acre lots with much closer setback. So now, neighbors who have a chicken 20 feet from my house, I can just imagine hearing 6 chickens cackling all the time. So it just seems like, I don't think any of us have particular knowledge of chickens, so I'm just worried that if we're going to have the idea of deviating from standard practices that much, we don't know what the unintended consequences are. So I could foresee that, you're going to start to get more complaints like, hey, I'm hearing chickens. So I just would suggest at least thinking about, do we want to deviate as far from where we sound like we're going compared to what a standard practice is?
The ordinance itself will be published on the website, I assume, so people can go and just read it, can't they?
Yes, when we publish next month's agenda, we'll have a link to the draft ordinance there. And then, of course, it'll also be before you for a public hearing, for additional public comment going forward. So there will be opportunity for the public to comment, both when it's introduced, because it will be an agenda item that month at the workshop. Also, at the Planning Commission meeting, Chairman Parker typically entertains comments from the audience on anything that's being discussed. And then, of course, we'll have the actual public hearing for comments as well. So there's going to be lots of opportunity to refine it and revise it, and for you all to make up your minds as we go forward.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys for coming out as well. I saw you at the county
Yes.
nuisance ordinance hearing, so.
Appreciate it. Thank
Appreciate
you.
you guys getting involved.
think I'd be talking on chickens tonight. Harry Mead, Baumgartner Avenue. First, I really have a question. Is this in response to a problem that's going on? Because I haven't particularly seen an overabundance of chickens running around Taneytown.
I would say it's in response to questions that have been asked, and we know that there are some chickens around, and so either we have to enforce the regulation or create a regulation that allows them. So
Yeah.
since they're already here, let's figure out how to
Yeah, I was gonna
regulate
say,
what we
there's some
have.
chickens around me somewhere.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they don't bother anybody, they don't do anything. Except for when one neighbor had 3 roosters there for a little while. But, yeah, I was gonna say, the zoning guy, or the guy, he came out and took care of those real quick, because that was killer. Just on the whole setbacks and everything else, with the lots that are being allowed in Taneytown, you're almost outlawing chickens without outlawing chickens with where you were looking. So that's kind of what it seems like it is the deal. So that's just because there's like nobody in Meats Crossing is going to be able to do it. I mean, I've seen those houses; they're this close together. So yeah, so it's just, it seems like it might be more of a solution in search of a problem.
Any additional public comments pertaining to agenda items? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion of adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Looking for a second? All those in favor? November. November. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.